Y'all ready to be history?
Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
With Tech to the VO stars. George Whittam, founder of Source Elements. Robert Marshall, international audio engineer. Darren Robbo Robertson and Global Voice. Andrew Peters, thanks to Tribooth. Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Source Elements. George the Tech Whittam. And Robbo and AP's international demos. To find out more about us, check theproaudiosuite.com.
Line up, ladies!
Here we go.
And welcome to another Pro Audio Suite. Thanks to Tribooth. Don't forget the Tribooth Memo. This is the portable one you can stick in your hand luggage. And, of course, Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Speaking of hearing things, well, I'm always hearing things, actually, to be quite honest, but that's another story. George, you've been doing a webinar, which is going to be on your site as well, which is the title being Microphones for Voiceover.
A lot of thought went into that one.
Are microphones for voiceover?
Yeah, so it's a kind of a, webinar on microphones for voiceover. How original. It's kind of funny, though. We really never did any content about microphones for voiceover. It's just one of those pieces of content that I've talked about ad nauseum in so many formats, but I never just sat down and demoed with a few folks listening in and asking questions an array of mics. And so that's what I did today. And I started at the lowest end with the Audio-Technica AT875R and worked my way up to the Austrian Audio OC818, which is in my collection anyway, which is a small collection. It's my most premium high-end microphone. So I just wanted them to hear the range. And you guys thought, hey, I've never really heard the Audio-Technica AT875R. And so here it is.
Gotcha.
So I went into my Rodecaster Pro 2, I went into processing, and I disabled processing. So this is what the AT875R sounds like. It's about a fist and an inch, maybe 4 or 5 inches off to my left, pointing towards the corner of my mouth, and no pop screen.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
You're going to hear some ambient room noise. You're going to hear some background noise because, again, I'm doing zero processing. You know, traditionally we process and I have some expander and stuff for gating on this. This is just as is. And I've always felt that the EQ of this mic is really pleasing and not a far cry from something like a 416 making an extremely good budget stunt mic for a 416 or 41.6.
It seems pretty smooth. Yeah, it doesn't seem too harsh, actually.
It is smooth,
it's not
isn't
harsh.
It? Yeah, I don't mind that at all.
It's not
And
overly
I don't think
harsh.
it quite has the cut of a 416, but it doesn't have the harshness that might come with that, too. It's pretty smooth. And this is like, what, $150 mic? What is this?
In that ballpark, yeah. It's well under 200 US usually.
And what about directionality, George, in terms of, like if you were comparing it to, say, an NTG5 or a 41.6, are they fairly similar?
Directionality. Well, like if I start working off axis one, you know, it has a fair amount of rejection on the sides.
Yeah.
It's a line gradient microphone. So it's not the same design as a 41.6. It's not an RF mic and it's not a tube. What do they call it? A tube interference? No.
It's it has an interference tube, but it sure looks like this one has an interference.
This one does not have an interference tube per se, I don't think. Because if you look at the side, you guys can see it. It has a very open side slot, and then the capsule's towards the back. Well, kind of like a traditional shotgun mic.
What's the model again? The AT what?
It's called the AT875R. So I think this is a really great budget mic, and I recommend it to a lot of people with less than ideal rooms because it picks up less room noise. It's more directional. It has a very pleasing EQ. It has 2 weak points. One of them is its self-noise is elevated. It's definitely noisier. You put it up in a quiet room, and you're going to notice the difference between this and really any other, popular condenser. It's certainly much higher than an NT1. It's noticeably higher than a 416. You pot it up and you hear a pretty general kind of a white noise from this mic.
But is it the kind of noise that kind of goes away? It's like a smooth, consistent noise, or has it got like a peak?
No,
or
it's
some sort of signature
smooth
sound to it.
Yeah, it's a very smooth, consistent white noise very flat. So it's
Hi-fi
not
noise. You know how people talk
objectionable.
about that?
Yeah, it's kind of like a tape reel-to-reel hiss, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so it's not objectionable. The other thing that is a pro or a con, and it totally depends on the user, is a low end. It has a built-in roll-off. It's a pretty aggressive low cut. So it does not have a lot of bottom end. So if you're going for a big bottom sound, this is not the mic. This is not what you want to use.
Aggressive in terms of the curve or aggressive in terms of where it's cutting?
That's a good question. And I don't know if I've ever seen a curve plot, frequency plot of the mic. Just listening to it when I throw it up to a 41.6, there's a definite difference. I mean, if you give me 30 seconds to switch the mics while you guys talk amongst yourselves,
I'll play some elevator
pretty
music.
quickly go to a 416.
Well, here I'll give you some useless info. I always feel like the open side grills of this Audio-Technica microphone always look like it's broken and someone broke off the side of the mic that should have been there. It looks a little bit like the side of what a EV, I think it's the PL15 should have looked like, but if you take the grill off the side of a EV PL15, you see that kind of thing. But besides that, it is probably one of the shortest, I guess, shotgun mics. Like George said, is it a shotgun?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. It's from an industrial design perspective, it's not premium looking. It looks kind of not very well made, but it is such an unbelievable budget that I kind of don't worry about that as much. But yeah, you look at it and you're like, what's up with that?
I think I'm going to break it if I pick it up.
Sorry, I have my speakers on. Sorry about that. All right, I'm going to lock this for.
Got it around the wrong way, George.
This boom arm.
Which end do you talk into?
The bit with the three pins.
But it looks like it's like $190.
Let's see if we can do this without a cable.
That was very funny. Well, in my webinar, I do put the mic, I do talk into the back of the 41.6 so people can hear that it has a back lobe.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Because that's the thing about shotguns and supercardioids is they do have a back lobe. They pick up a bit from the back. And it's interesting because it's pretty much a full spectrum pickup. It's not a super filtered sound. It's just
lower.
Like
it doesn't quite have the reach. It's got a pickup, but it's not the same gain or reach as the front of it.
Yeah,
but it's kind of a figure 8-ish, because if you think about it, a figure 8 also rejects incredibly well from the side, and all that energy. It's like squeezing a balloon. The energy pops out somewhere else.
So now I'm on the 41.6 and my partner's
There's that sound. There's that sound.
But you can hear the bottom octave of the 875 doesn't hear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So from a mid to high frequency spectrum, I think the two are not too crazy far off from each other. But the low end, you don't get the extension of a 416 on the 875 at all. So it's not going to be for everybody. But I think for a lot of people, especially women or just people that need something that they can pull out of a bag and record it in the back of a car or in their closet, something that's a quick and dirty, get a decent sounding VO. It's a really good quick and dirty mic.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it's that hard to EQ that back end. It depends on how steep that filter is and if it really just rolls it off or just kills it. You can't EQ back in what's not there.
You can fake it, though.
I always find the 41.6, though, is very harsh on a sibilant voice.
Yes.
If you were sibilant, you wouldn't want to be using a 41.6. Having said that, I'm on the Austrian Audio CC8, which also I'm hearing a bit of top end as well in this thing. Lovely bottom end.
I love you on that mic. I really do.
It's a great little microphone, this one.
I'm actually trying to look up what the AT875.
It's kind of funny. You set that up in your room as like I'm just going to give this a try. And I feel like that's stayed become there for the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the AP sound. It's the AP podcast sound.
That's right. But the strange thing is I took it on the road. This was the mic I used in the back of the car. And everyone was like, holy shit, that sounds amazing. But it also, when we were chatting with Kirk from Austrian Audio, for Kurt, sorry, he was saying about the voicing of this microphone is not dissimilar to the 818 and the 18. It does have, you can tell it's in the same family.
It's interesting.
I do like that.
So
mic.
Audio-Technica, even though this is a really, budget level, entry level mic, they still do print and create, a polar pattern and a frequency response diagram for that mic. So you can get a real honest look at that.
What's kind of interesting about it is that other mics in its price point for shotguns would be battery powered shotguns. For that
is true.
For those camera people.
Yeah.
That, like, oh, we have a preamp that has 48. And this thing is like, it's at that price point for I just need a shotgun mic and I don't give a crap about mics because I put all my money into my lens. But it needs 48 Phantom, which kind of assumes a higher level of equipment is behind it.
It's true.
It is very
this
aggressive
mic
at
was-
the bottom end, isn't it, that mic?
Yeah, it's a steep roll off. In fact, their actual spec is at
What's the
mic's
key? What's the knee point?
100.
I didn't quite see it.
100.
100.
Yeah.
And then it falls off a cliff.
And then it just goes
Even harder than that.
straight
Yeah, it
off.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd ski
Yeah.
down that hill.
Yeah. Well, you'll notice the frequency response spec is 90 to 20K. So they basically consider after 90 dB, you don't use this mic.
Nothing you're going to use.
They consider this for basically put it on the top of a camera.
Totally what it's for. Yeah, this is totally.
And it's short for that reason too, so it doesn't like
It's short. Yeah. Throw it on a video camera. It lives in the bag. Takes a beating. It's for people that don't care that much about the audio. It's just a mic that lives
Yeah.
on the camera. That's why. It was
Well,
a
if you just
surprise
want a
the
camera
first time
mic, as a
it literally says it's for ENG and ER or EFP. What's EFP? I know what ENG is, but what's EFP audio acquisition?
Where do you see that?
electronic field production. I don't know.
I guess, yeah.
But I just didn't expect it to be as pleasing of a microphone on a voice as it was. Because
I didn't
because it
mind
just
it at
what
all.
Yeah.
yeah, it was a total surprise. I don't remember where I first discovered the mic. I don't remember where it came from. It's just been I've had the mic forever and it's just been around. So yeah, it's a very commonly recommended mic for me at this point when someone's on a budget, or they already have a 41.6 or an NTG5 and they want to have an ultra budget mic for not being worried about being lost
yeah,
in the
or
field
broken.
or damaged.
Actually, speaking of the 41.6 though, and we talked about this before we started recording, when we did the comparison years ago with a whole bunch of mics, in fact the mics I had here, and we put the NT1, the Rode NT1 up against the 41.6, and they were so close, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like it was so shocking.
It was crazy, wasn't it?
But I'm getting a similar vibe of a similar situation because I remember thinking how bizarre it was that this large diaphragm mic sounds like a small diaphragm shotgun mic, and then you're saying the same thing about the OC8 and the 818. They
Yeah.
could not be more
Yeah,
different
true.
in their construction.
Yeah,
Well, I've just been recently
it's weird.
diving into watching this extremely long video tour of Genelec. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I think it's on Production Expert or what's one of those very popular YouTube channels.
I think, is it produced like a pro?
Is it produced like a pro? Yeah, I think so. What's that
Or
guy's
is it Warren
name?
Hewitt going
yeah,
through
Warren
Genelec?
Hewitt.
Yeah, that's it.
It's
Yeah.
fun because it's they go to the museum. There's like a basement room, with all the Genelec.
Oh yeah. Every manufacturer has their
Yeah.
own museum. It's like Shure has
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's always been their design philosophy. It doesn't matter how big or small the speaker is, has the same voice,
It's
which
true.
is
Yeah.
which is very
Yeah.
a big deal with Genelec, right? You
I
have
can definitely say that
tiny
about
3
Genelecs. I
two-way.
remember.
all the way up to the big boys. Of course, as you go bigger, they get louder and they have more low end. Other than that, voicing
They
is
sound
the same.
extremely similar. Like I can attest to that because, when I was at another country, they had big 3-way Genelecs that had the I forget what the exact model was, but like 18-inch woofers, and then we would spend a lot of our time on the 1030s, and it just always felt like just the low end kept on going down and down, but the top end was the same always. Like it just felt.
It's funny. Yeah, because I've got a pair of 8010s here, which is the 3-inch
with the cast
driver
aluminum
and a tweeter.
chassis.
Yeah.
Cast aluminum.
Yeah. That you could throw them downstairs. I think they'd be fine. But it's amazing when you fire those things up. You give them a bit of welly. They're really, really loud. I mean, there's 2 amplifiers in.
Well, yeah, they're all
the
bi-amps.
AT8s.
Yep, that was a big
Yeah.
deal. Yeah.
And I've had people in here come in to record. I had some guys recording some music, doing some vocals and stuff in here. And we used the little Genelecs as opposed to the big Yamahas. They were like, "Oh my, is that coming out of those?" My
I have
God.
a pair of, I think our great Genelecs are the 1029s, if you know of those. And those you could probably squash a pair of 8010s with in terms of build. They're like, but again, I think it's like
is that a 5-inch woofer?
it's like a 5-inch woofer with a tweeter, and they have a metal grill over the tweeter and a metal grill over the woofer, and there's a volume on it, and the whole thing is just like you could just build a house out of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Insane. And then
Are they square? Are they the square ones?
they're square. They're a little bit. They got some angles to them, but they're basically just blocks. But
Yeah.
you throw a subwoofer on them, boom. You have a great sounding setup.
Yeah, Genelecs are amazing. They're beautiful speakers. That's for sure. Back to microphones, though.
And back to microphones.
If you had you could have an NT1, and you could have a CC8. And you'd have the large diaphragm sound from the small diaphragm.
The small
diaphragm sound.
Yeah, just swap them around. Yeah. I don't know why you would want to, but sure, you could.
You could.
Just to
Yeah,
screw
certainly
with people.
microphone manufacturers don't have the same idea about mic design as Genelec does about monitor design. You know, Genelec has a very distinct sound curve that they've established that's generally considered to be very honest, I guess, very flat. And you know, that's their thing. Whereas if you made a microphone, the thing about microphones is they're different. You don't have 7 different sizes of mic with the same voicing. That is a different
I think
animal,
yes and no. So I think if you look at the company that actually, so the company that bought Austrian Audio and the company that they were before that was B&K mics. And those were test microphones. And yes, every test microphone you want, it's like supposed to be flat and the same in truth.
Right.
And that's kind of what you're looking for from a pair of monitors is here's our version of the truth.
Right.
And Genelec is consistent. Like they tell the same story all the time. But then when you look at microphones, especially microphones for music and kind of also for voiceover, you are looking for a particular paintbrush, one that works well with your instrument, your voice, whatever it is. And you are looking for different sounds. And I think that's why you see some, if not, there would be like, 10 microphones out there if all you were, I don't know.
Yeah, true.
That's true, yeah.
Here's a one to throw at you. If Genelec made headphones, would they sound like the Austrian Audio IX headphones?
Surprising Genelec doesn't make headphones, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is interesting what they choose not to make. They haven't gone the Focal route, which is, of course, we make a $3,000 pair of headphones.
Right.
In fact, I was
that we're consistent at is being expensive.
I was at the repair shop where my friend does all the Avalon stuff. I was picking up 2 737s to sell for one voice actor, dropping off 3 Avalons for an agency to be, benched, tuned, calibrated so I could sell them. I'm gonna have 5 Avalons.
Those were the
for
Avalon
sale.
preamps. Those were the straight preamps, not the channel.
Altogether,
strip.
I have 3 737s and 2 2022s. The 2022s are the 2-channel,
nice.
solid state, external power supply, very high fidelity preamps.
Yeah.
But I was there, and he had a set of Focal Utopias with a broken yoke. So, the yoke that the cup supported inside your headphone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Carbon fiber. He said the part is $900.
Oh my
The
god.
carbon fiber yoke.
Crazy. That's
ridiculous.
Unnecessary. Yeah.
Yeah. That's Formula One.
It is. It is
Headphones.
like the F1 of headphones. It's true. Like the really no budget, no limit.
So wait. These things have gone beyond stacks, is what you're telling me. Focal has taken the $5,000 head speaker and taken it to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the top of the line focals are because there seems to be no limit as to how much you can price a headphone for, just like there seems to be no limit to how much you can price a car for at this point. And people still sell out.
Right.
So, it just every time I hear about more high-end gear and cars and everything, I just realize there's just that many more people that can afford these cars than there used to be, which is weird.
That's why there's a lot more people that can't afford to eat.
So those were Focal Utopias, right?
The ones that I saw on the bench were Focal Utopias, right? They have carbon fiber.
Those are $5,000 microphones. So you're telling me that the yoke is 1/5 of the price of that thing? Sorry, headphones. Well, you could probably use them as a mic too, but
Probably.
It's a $5,000 headphone. Yeah, exactly.
And you're telling me that one of the yokes is 1/5 of the price of that thing.
That's right. Well, I have a whole nother story to talk about from that same shop. That might be in another episode coming up.
Meanwhile, back on microphones.
Yeah, that's
So
Now
when
on
are we
the
going to start
MA50.
using drum microphones for voiceover? I think the secret hidden mic for voiceover is the D112.
I knew you were going to say that.
D112.
You knew I was going to say that.
The
Did you?
D112.
Well, think about it. It's got that mid-frequency pop for all your heavy metal kick drums to pop through.
Right.
And then it's got the bass to it. And it's like, kick mics often do work well for voice. You have your PL20 and your and Bayer M88s and mics that work in kick drums work for voiceover.
You're an innovator,
Right.
Robert. You really are.
You mean the RE20?
Yeah, do you need a cloud lifter or something for a D112?
The PL20, RE20, same mic. Yeah.
Same mic.
Same mic.
So now we're on the MA50. So you guys may not be too aware of this company. It's a small U.S. company based in L.A. called Mojave. They've been around a while. The mics are designed by David Royer of the Royer Microphone Company.
Which
Royer
normally
mics
makes
is mostly known
ribbons.
for ribbons, right? That's their
Yeah.
But he also designs the mics for Mojave. So they're like sister companies. And
Royer ribbon mics are really one of the better ribbon, like AEA and Royer kind of make some of the top end ribbon mics.
they're the
in
ones that everybody compares to exactly. They're the ones used on drum overheads and orchestras, and they're fantastic. Fantastic mics.
It's like that in Coles,
so anyway,
I guess, but yeah.
The MA50 is another great sounding large diaphragm condenser.
Nice.
It's very pleasing. It's not harsh. It's smooth. It's got the full spectrum. There's no low cut switches or anything on this mic. So, if you have a rumble problem, these mics do a lovely job of picking up rumble and low frequency. In fact, I demonstrated that in my booth, and I was letting people see and hear the room tone, and we were looking at the RMS meter on Twisted Wave, and this one's room tone measured the highest compared to the NT1 and the 41.6, because simply it just picks up more low frequency input. And so the more low frequency sensitivity a mic is going to have, the higher your metering is going to reflect on your room tone measurement. This is why we get so caught up in talking about room tone, and people are like, I want to get a lower than a minus 60 dB room tone in my studio.
frequency?
And I'm like, yeah, you have to consider the whole frequency spectrum. And the low end is the hardest to control. So I tell people, look, for a lot of folks, just applying a high pass filter is going to be an adequate treatment to that issue.
Or you can just leave it alone and let your engineer take care of it.
Or leave it alone. If the engineer doesn't care what your meters say, which a professional doesn't care what the meters say, they only care what it
Stop
sounds
mixing
like.
with your eyes. Yeah.
Yes, they don't care what the meters say.
Absolutely.
But that's the problem when there's this notion that the minus 60 has become the golden number for room tone, and it's because of ACX
I think the
audiobooks.
audiobook companies,
Right.
they've really put the fear of God into all these voiceover people,
Right.
Because they put so much burden of engineering onto the voiceover person.
Right. Right. Now, interestingly, when I put up my 41.6 in the booth and I was recording with peaks at just about under zero, because I was using the Passport VO with the compressor, so I had the gain up pretty hot, and I was going right up to just about zero. I was getting about minus 60 on the meter on the 41.6. So coincidence? I don't know. But that's just where that mic tends to meter out on the room tone, on the self noise. So, it's just, what does it sound like? That's what matters. Remember
Exactly.
that. Right.
Yeah.
I'd say
I used a Mojave.
yeah, I'd say this Mojave seems to have a very smooth top end to it, like from what I can tell. Not much.
I used one of those. Yeah, I used one of those probably 15 years ago. A mate of mine who had a studio went in for a session. He just bought that microphone. Well,
it may have been
model was
the
back then.
brother. So the MA50 is their entry point mic. So they wanted to come out with something a little bit more, cost effective. So this one
Entry point being $500, right?
entry point being $500 to $600. I think it actually went up in price a little bit. The MA200, 201, and the 301, and they have a 301 FET. That's more likely the mic you were probably using. I don't know if you remember if it was a tube or a FET mic, Andrew.
It was a FET, and I know it was actually an entry level one because the guy that was using it, he said, "Look, this was actually really cheap," and he said it sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So it may have been when this came out, or it may have been the 201, which was probably in a similar price point to this was that this one was when it came out.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're all great. The thing about mics is how does it sound, and what's the quality control like, right? Like these mics are hand built to a degree. The capsule in the MA50 arguably is probably not a hand-built capsule. I don't know how they sourced the capsule in this.
I was going to
at
say,
that price point.
are they making their own, or are they?
At this price point for the MA50, I'd have to find out. I have to ask. I don't know. I don't want to assume anything. But the QC is a big part of it too. The quality control. David really does bench every mic himself. Before it walks out of the door, he puts it up, he listens to it, he signs off and calibrates it. And that's a big deal for there still to be the mic designer himself whose ears go on that mic before it goes out the doors. I think that means a lot.
Pretty rare these days. And what did you say the price point was for that one? I
Yeah.
didn't hear you.
$499 for
US.
a while. The last I checked, it was closer to $500. It was closer to $600.
I'm looking at one right now that's $525.
It's pretty reasonable still.
And then it looks like the map is
Yeah.
$650.
Which is not bad. That's okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm going back to my Austrian Audio OC818. Is that what the condenser handheld is?
Yeah, 707, isn't it?
This thing has an odd.
go.
Yeah. Well, this has an odd EQ, and I'm gonna turn off my processing on this mic.
It just
One, two,
has
there we
that stage, like it just dropped the low end kind of thing.
Yeah. So this is
Because it
the
assumes that someone's going to be,
flat.
because you're not too close to it, right?
right.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you-
This
if you
is the
get
mic
up in it,
totally
like-
flat, and it has this
Yeah.
mid-range punch. There's like a little bit of a mid-range tent in the curve, which they said is intentional. I mean, that was. I haven't done live sound in so long, so I don't remember the way I would EQ my handheld mics a lot. But apparently, there's always needing to. This is a frequency range that's desirable in a live sound mic because you're trying to get the voice to kind of elevate and lift above the mud of the guitars and stuff. So I guess it makes sense. But in a vacuum, when it's just voice, no music, nothing, the EQ of this is not my favorite, and so I kind of smooth out the mid-range.
What's the model of that one again?
OC707? Is that what this guy is?
Sounds right.
Sorry about that. Yeah, OC707. And the reason I got them to send me this mic was I really wanted to see what would be, in my opinion, what could be the ultimate travel mic. You want a mic that has a built-in plosive pop filter. You want a mic that has a built-in shock mount. You want a mic that has a really nice pickup, but isn't overly sensitive to low frequency and rumble. These are all things that I think of as a good travel mic. So basically the CC8 that Andrew has, but without the EQ curve of the 707. So if they made a mic that was the CC8, but the sound of the CC8 in the shock mount and the plosive pop protection of the OC707, that could be an ultimate portable mic. I don't know.
There you go.
That's my theory.
Yeah.
I think they were going for a bit of an SM57 thing with that mic.
In terms of its
Yeah,
curve, EQ.
Is that what you?
Yeah,
is that
well,
what you
okay,
hear?
so like a 57, looking at it, has got a bump rated around, looks like it's probably like
2.
starting at 2K and ending at around 10K, peaking at 5K. It's got a bump.
Oh, like a big bump.
And then before that, it's pretty damn flat, except you can ski down the hill at around 100 on the 57. Kind of drops off quick. And then we look at the Austrian Audio 707 Airliner. Andrew got it.
I got it.
Yeah.
I was with you.
There we go. Okay, so the Austrian Audio, flatter, smoother, like less jagged, but it's got a bump that peaks out right around 4.5K, starts at 1.5K, and then it has a little extra bump right at around 12K. So, but as far as that 5K bump in that area that the 57 has, the 707 has it. And then similarly, the 707 is pretty flat from 1K backwards, but then you get to 100 hertz and falls off the cliff. I think that's very characteristic of a stage handheld mic. Yeah.
The 707's got a really interesting basket, though, because it's at the back of the basket is open.
Yeah, and they probably do that to
Exactly
get
right, George,
better,
yeah.
smoother off-axis rejection, I'm sure.
Yeah.
A lot of the sounds of microphones isn't the sound of what's in front of it. It's the sound of what's not in front of it and how it rejects it without making that stuff sound bad. Like the off-axis rejection. If it sounds good, even though it's off-axis, the idea is that you want the sound to attenuate in volume. But what you don't want is the off-axis sound to attenuate in some crazy way so that all you hear is all the high-end crappy stuff. You know, that's like crappy mic bleed. But if it's just, hey, a little extra volume of that stuff, it's a lot more manageable on stage. Then every time I pull the singer up, I get all of the cymbals in a harsh, nasty way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, George, where can people go to your webinar to hear all these microphones?
Well, have we heard the
Or where would they find
have we
it?
heard the 818?
Oh,
Or were we going
Well,
to?
you've been listening to one whole episode.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
yeah,
That's right.
Robbo's on one.
I wanted to try to get the. I guess I didn't notice, or like when you switch from the MA50 to the 818. I was kind of curious about that.
Go on, throw it up.
Oh,
Let's
do you
have a
want to hear
listen.
that?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
All right, give me 20 seconds to walk into the booth and grab it. I'll be.
Do you know the
right
interesting thing that I find with the 818? I did a comparison with a 414EB.
Uh-huh.
Even though it's the nylon capsule, which everyone goes, nylon capsule, I'm going to have the brass capsule. I don't think it's the brass capsule, in my opinion, is that much different to the nylon one. The fact that people actually sent them off for repair, came back with a nylon capsule, and they didn't know, kind of
Yeah.
agrees with that comment. But anyway, I did it, and it was really interesting because the 818 and the 414EB were very similar. You could just hear the 414 was just a bit dull in comparison, but they certainly were in the same ballpark.
Well, same design
Same sort of
philosophy. They are the CK12. I mean, even the name of the capsules are pretty similar. What is it, like the CK12,
CKR12,
CKR12, and CK12? Yeah.
yeah.
So.
Oh, they were very honest about it, I think.
Yeah.
Because it was the CK12 capsule they were modeling.
They were trying to make a CK12 that was easier to manufacture, I think. And
Yeah.
George has the
And more
world's first
reliable.
handheld
All right.
818.
Yeah, I'm lazy because I don't feel like I'm threading the shock mount right now for the other mic. But this is now the 818, hanging roughly in the same place as the MA50. I'm holding it by my hand, and it's on cardioid. It's on flat, and it's no pad. So that's what that mic sounds like with nothing going on, just the mic itself. No processing. There may be some post-processing, on the mix of the show here a little bit, but that's it. That's the 818. So it's a different sound than the MA50, isn't it?
And it's officially my favorite voiceover mic. I love it.
trying to recall that MA50 now. And do you guys have any thoughts on what the differences were? Are you going to put that MA50 back up there, George? Looks like you just.
There's the MA50. Now we're back on the MA50.
Okay, so more top end, I think.
The MA50 is a little bit more quote unquote hi-fi or disco smile.
Yeah.
A little
It
bit
sounds
more
like it's
top,
got more
a little
top
bit more
end to
bottom.
me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the 818 is a little bit more flat, a little bit more honest. Just different.
I think
horses,
I like the 818 better.
horses
The
for
818
horses.
sounded like it had a better kind of balance to it.
Mm-hmm.
But
They are a nice mic. They are. I love it.
They're very nice. In fact, I just checked my CC8 and I've got a 60 high pass.
oh, you flipped the switch on it for the 60 high pass?
Yeah, it was on there. I actually had it flicked to, I think it's 60.
Does
No,
the
I forgot.
tool from the
Yeah, I think it was
Centrance work
60.
to flip that switch?
It's
It's one of those. It's one of those switches that you can't
SIM
get to very
card
easily.
popper thing. Yeah.
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 There you go. Well, there you go. Masterclass in microphones.
Yeah, exactly. The M50 voicing is really, there's sort of like this thing. I think with voicing, there's, when you're new to voiceover, or not new to voiceover, really new to voice recording or even audio engineering, and you're a musician, a mic that sounds more exciting is going to sell better. If it's got a little bit more brightness, a little more cut, it's just, that's what
But
people want to
then-
hear. Just like with headphones, if it's got a little bit more
Yeah.
top end, it's more sizzle. It's just the sizzle is what people look for. But when you become more, your taste improves, and you're into fine
Exactly.
wines.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You notice those.
Yep.
You're not fooled by things that color the sound to sell the mic.
Mhm.
And this
Right.
makes it sound like I'm cheapening the MA50. I'm really not, but they're understanding the market for that mic is entry point. And
I
mics
would say
up
the
food
equivalent
chain.
statement is like if you go to Best Buy or whatever and you go check out your stereo systems and you just buy it based on like which one has more low end.
Yeah, which one's got the most bass?
You're not really
Yeah.
getting the better
Yes,
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like you're just
Yeah.
ooh, I'm more impressed. Like which car engine is
Yeah.
louder or something.
But what we
Yeah.
care about more is like how EQable is that mic going to be?
Mhm.
Can I get
Mhm.
everything I need out of that mic?
Mm.
Are all the frequencies there? That's what we care about more.
and
right?
in a smooth way. Like they're not like some jagged thing so that when I pop this frequency area up, I get my jagged mountain
Weird.
becomes even more weird.
Yeah. Like
And,
if I add a 4 kilohertz bump, is it also going to make like this really jagged tooth stick out, because there's like a
Right.
bump in the EQ, That's why the smoother the response is better, because
Yeah.
1 dB derivation, plus or minus, as you add more and more boost, it's going to stand out even more. It's going to just really jump out at you. So
And that's why one of the funny things, it's like, ribbon mics, they're lower output, they tend to be noisier, they tend to not have as much high end. But one thing I can say about ribbon mics, very often they take to EQ extremely well. Yeah, and
like
they
there's
sound
no frequencies missing. There's no
natural.
frequencies missing, and there's no frequencies artificially bumped.
they tend to be like smoother, and they just sort of sound. They have a natural, almost a boringness to them. Is almost the problem.
Rode actually released that NTR, their ribbon mic,
Oh, yeah.
which I don't know whatever happened to it. I don't think they pushed it very hard and it kind of sat on a few shelves in music stores, I guess. But I always wanted to try one to see what it was like, because what I read was, unlike most ribbon mics, this one was actually quite hyped in the top end, which is odd for a ribbon
Possible,
mic. But they
yeah.
must have just tuned it.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's also like, how do you do that in a way? It's like how you tension the ribbon and stuff. Because I believe that ribbon mics, condenser mics have a lot of electronics in them. Ribbon mics tend not to. They're usually a transformer, a magnet, and a ribbon, for the most part.
Yeah.
And similar with a dynamic moving coil mic, they're a coil, a diaphragm, a transformer. Quite often, I don't know how many. In fact, are there many transformerless dynamic mics? I don't even know if there are. So they just tend to have less going on with them. But it does harken back to when we were talking to Derek at Vanguard, and the thing that he kept on going back to, the biggest difference is the voicing on the capsule.
It's true.
What a fine art that is, voicing.
Yeah, absolutely.
The electronics are going to make your difference with the noise floor and that stuff, but the sound of it is going to be, I guess, a lot to do with the capsule and I
And
guess
the head basket.
Yeah, true.
Here's a question for you, George, and Robert. In fact, and Robert, really. if there was no budget, you didn't have to worry about being spendy or not, what microphone do you think would be the best one for a voice? And won't say.
I reckon it depends on the voice, because I like.
Is it in studio? So
Yeah.
you're not thinking about traveling or anything. Just like what's the best sounding one?
Like
No, in studio.
given the right environment, the right, a good proper studio environment.
Oh man, I like a U67. I love a 67.
If you weren't sure and you had an unlimited budget, I'll be honest, the mic I would probably pick is a 416 because it's the sound that people expect.
For voiceover. Yeah.
For voiceover, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true.
You know, if you're not sure, if you got no idea, 416 and you can't go wrong.
It's true.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd agree that the 416 probably for most projects, especially broadcast-oriented commercials and things like that, it's just going to get you there quicker without
It
having
sounds
to do
familiar is the way I always
Yeah.
say it. It just sounds
Yeah.
familiar.
But I do think like a really nice, like I go, the best mic, like I've ever recorded on is an original U67. And it's like, like it's the first time you smoke pot or something.
I've never smoked pot.
Oh, well, like you should try it. I highly recommend it and the
hear that
U67. But yes.
You hear the mic,
That's
eat
right,
pizza
yeah.
and throw up.
Right. You get dizzy.
Well, I'm lucky because I got to use and hear that mic quite a bit with David Kay. And the reason we stopped using it was just purely just this persnickety nature of those
Pain in
older
the
mics.
ass.
And the Peluso P67 was a good enough stand-in that mic took over as daily driver. So he still has one U67 in the closet. It sounds great.
My two favorite mics that I use if I could only have one microphone, I think it would be an 818.
I would
Because it is
agree.
pretty versatile.
And I'm not saying that because, we always say, Austrian Audio sponsor this show, but I'm not saying because of that. It's just a fucking good mic. I don't care.
Yeah,
It really is.
It is. It's a great mic. And the only other one I would consider, if I had two, would be maybe the Microtech Gefell, my 92.1.
That one's a good one.
That's a beautiful mic. That
Yeah.
one still sitting in the box.
So
why did you buy
Andrew
it?
did marry his true love. Then
Mhm.
he's got the mics he loves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I only have a fake 67. I don't know, not 50s. 60s.
I'll say this. If anybody's going, they're biased, of course they like the 818. I mean, check out Bandrew, Podcastage's review of the 818. I mean, he's like, and that guy literally does nothing but sit there and listen to microphones
Yeah.
all day in comparison.
Yeah,
and he
true.
always puts them up against a U87 and a 103. And he was blown away by the 818. I mean, he just was
I would
like,
say-
this is a instant classic. He literally used the word, this is an instant classic. And
I think another one
Yeah,
thing
I
about the
agree.
818 is it punches so high above its price point.
Oh, totally. I got mine about a year ago, and I was always swapping mics because I'd be happy with something for a while, and then I'd go, I haven't taken this down in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that's
Says a lot.
pretty
Yeah,
much
it
it
says a
says a lot. So yeah.
And keep in mind, it's really like two microphones. You get that dual
It is.
capsule output. It is technically capable of so much more than other mics, just in terms of remotely switching patterns. And I guess even like I haven't even messed with it now, but using the polar pattern thing and then embedding that into the mic, the software where you can then send that. Isn't that something you can do
Pattern.
with the 818?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
pattern
the polar
Polar
design.
design.
Yeah,
Polar
polar
design.
design.
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's definitely an incredible mic, and
That's a
for what is
secret
it?
weapon.
Yeah.
$1,200, right?
Yeah. It's a bit more here. So it's
Yeah,
about
yeah.
1,800, 1,900 here probably. Yeah. But still.
And
Yeah.
that plugin,
Great value. I think they're.
it's not just a plugin that you have to run in a DAW either.
No.
Because
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can embed that
You can go
setting
straight
into the
into
mic,
it.
right?
Yeah.
you can embed it into the firmware of the
Yeah.
mic through that little Bluetooth dongle thing. And now that your own secret pickup pattern that's unique to you that nobody else has is in the mic. And nobody has that. I have not seen anybody try to do that yet.
That is
So
a 100% unique feature. Yes.
it really is. It really is.
I know Lewitt tried to do stuff like that, and I don't know whether they have all that as well, but they certainly have the two
if I dare say, they're sister companies. Maybe they're not sisters.
In the
they're
sense that they came out of the parent being AKG.
Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's see here. Is Lewitt Gefell and then Austrian Audio is Neumann? Or because some people think that actually Gefell is the true Neumann.
I'm one of them that's absolutely is the
so
true
then
Neumann.
Austrian Audio is the Gefell in that context.
Yeah.
So then who's Lewitt?
So, I mean, probably people are wondering what the hell you're talking about. But the thing about, if you think about Neumann, it's actually another company.
Right.
Because it's owned by Sennheiser.
Mm-hmm.
And Gefell has all the original tooling and everything.
Right. And that all goes back to, if no one knows, that goes back to World War II when they sliced Germany in half. And the factory was in one place. And then Neumann, the guy, ran to the west, right?
He got out. He went back to Berlin and reopened.
But all his original tools were in the east.
Yeah, so Neumann was in Gefell because of the bombings in Berlin. So they got the factory up and went to Gefell, which became East Germany, and then Neumann went back and started up Neumann again in Berlin, while Gefell and they actually worked together for quite a while until the wall went up. And once the wall went up, that was the end of that. Right. So Gefell got isolated and just continued doing that.
But you want a mic built on the original equipment, it's a Gefell.
Yeah. If you want an M7 capsule built on the original tooling, then you get a Gefell. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
So there you go.
So then where's AKG in that whole thing? Like AKG shows up after the war. They're not a company that's before the war, right?
I'm not sure when they started actually. I don't know. I thought, were they not?
I have no idea. Like, I mean, they certainly show up pretty soon after, because the C12 is like kind of, and they're doing stuff for Telefunken. So they're definitely in that, like, by the 60s, they're definitely well established, which means they probably at it
absolutely
in the 50s. Neumann's at it in the 40s because the 47, things like that. So I don't know exactly how old AKG is.
1947.
Yeah,
because
George and I at the same time.
1947. So because AKG were supplying Telefunken and the Alam 251 and the C12 were actually the same microphone.
Pretty
really.
much. Yep.
Yeah.
So AKG is definitely a post-war company. And it's so funny because it's like that original capsule, that CK12 capsule. It's like that designed from, because the C12 is one of their first mics for AKG, right?
The AKG DYN series were at that time manufactured by hand by 5 workers. In 1949, the first AKG headphones came on the market. There you go. 2 years later.
Wow. Okay.
How is it that these guys?
They would have been comfortable.
How is it that they essentially, for lack of a better way, for lack of a better way of saying it, how did they essentially perfect the mic capsule in the 40s before we had the monitoring that could monitor the full range of sound the way we do now? Or
I think they were somehow tensioning them. They were tensioning them by hand. Well, it was all hand tensioned. It was one of the things.
You'd also have to optimize it for whatever was the benchmark at the time, I suppose, wouldn't you? Right?
I don't know how they knew what the tension was, because did they have, like, how do you check? Like you think about a drum head, you can push on it and you can check the tension on it, but something as fragile as a microphone diaphragm, I think they were just hand tensioning them and somehow feeling the tension on either end of whatever film they placed it on. And the early designs were trying to figure out what do they call it, back straight or something that they placed the gold onto, and it was mylar
substrate.
That became substrate. That's the word, right? And they would, like mylar was good and it had all these great pop properties, but then they found out, as in the case of the M7, that it deteriorates over time, and whatever it is that AKG uses, and then how to screw it all together. And that's where the brass capsule was a pain in the ass. So the nylon capsule was like more like snapped together. And so they refined the manufacturing process by doing the nylon capsule, but somehow.
But you still they were still tuned by ear though, weren't they?
I wonder if they used it like an oscilloscope.
Oscilloscope?
Would they use that?
I don't know how you put you're not putting electricity through a diaphragm. You're putting physical vibrations.
Moving.
I think what they were doing is they would make a bunch of capsules, hand tension them. They probably had some sort of tool that would tell you the tension, but it's like a drum head. There's many tensions going across a circular thing. So it's really kind of an art to get consistent tension across everything. And then you got to clamp it down at the right moment when you have it all tensioned. So a million things can go wrong. They make a bunch of capsules and they listen to them and they chuck the ones that are bad.
Yeah, which is what they did with the C12. That was why they moved from brass to nylon.
Because they'd have a lot of rejects.
This is like a history lesson.
Started off as let's talk about mics and studio mics, and now all of a sudden we're sort of like, back in the war, back when I were a child.
Yeah. When I were a lad, it was right in wartime,
Wasn't like that in my day.
Didn't have microphone. No.
We used to live in a little box in the middle of the road.
And I think that's also why you talk a lot about those vintage mics, and not all vintage mics sound the same, because of the handmade nature of them and things like that.
It's like you buy a handmade car and not one is the same.
There you go.
That's the charm.
That's why I don't buy handmade cars.
Model T.
But there you go.
Yeah.
Well, we've gone from microphones to what else? To history, really. So there you go.
Yeah, history.
And cars now. Yeah, that's right.
But if you ever do get to Germany and you want to go and see a really interesting museum, take a train to Gefell and go and check out the Microtech Gefell factory.
Have you been there?
Because it's got all the No, but I've watched it online. I'd love to go there.
It's AP's next job. He's going to become a tour guide.
Yeah.
He's just warming up.
That's right.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite, with thanks to Tribooth and Austrian Audio. Recorded using Source Connect. Edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Robbo. Got your own audio issues? Just ask Robbo.com. With tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, proaudiosuite.com.